You begin with a breath, not of air, but of stillness, a pause in time where thought hushes and awareness drifts like mist. You lie back and the quiet draws near. The world is soft around you now, and in this stillness you wonder what lies just beyond the known, not in another place, but in a mirrored space, one that turns with yours yet never touches. Imagine this. You hold a stone in your hand, solid, familiar, real. But somewhere not far, not close, there exists another stone. It is made not of matter, but of antimatter, not the opposite in shape, but the twin in charge in behavior, in soul. A proton spins in your world and far away, an antiproton spins too. It looks the same, it weighs the same, but when they meet, they do not touch, they vanish. Not into nothing, but into everything. A flash of energy, a quiet combustion, like two thoughts that cancel each other before they can become words. You trace your finger across the blanket or the air. Each motion you make feels one-sided forward, here, now. But beneath it all, reality holds balance. Nature writes its stories with symmetry in mind. For every matter particle, the electron, the quark, the neutrino, there is a mirror, a silent echo, the positron, the antiquark, the antineutrino. They are not fiction, they are not dreams. We have seen them, trapped them, measured their light. When cosmic rays strike our atmosphere, positrons appear. When certain atoms decay, tiny bursts of antimatter are released, and in machines great rings of magnets and fields we birth antimatter, like flickers from thought into form, just for a moment, and then gone. So where is it all? If every matter particle has a twin, why does our world not glow with balanced halves? Why are you your body, your breath, made only of matter? This is the first mystery that rocks you gently to sleep. At the beginning of time, just after the great unfolding, the Big Bang, there should have been equal parts matter and antimatter. They should have met and disappeared, leaving a sea of light, but no stars, no dust, no you. And yet you exist. The world exists. Matter remained. Just a little more, enough to build galaxies and thoughts. Enough to ask this question, why? You feel the hum of that question in your bones, not urgent, just deep, just wide, like the space between stars. Somewhere in that first moment, that cosmic inhale, something tipped the scales. A flicker of imbalance, a flaw in the mirror, perhaps a force that favored matter, or a dance between particles we do not yet understand. Physicists search still in silence, in tunnels, in collisions of light. They hold out their hands in the dark, feeling for the places where symmetry broke, where the universe blinked, and in that blink, chose. You drift deeper now, not into sleep, but into understanding. This is not a story of villains and heroes. Antimatter is not evil, it is not danger, it is not destruction, it is poetry. A reminder that nature dreams in pairs. In medicine we use antimatter to see inside the body. PIC scans, positron emission, tomography rely on tiny acts of vanishing. Positrons meet electrons, light bursts forth. From this we map the living self. Antimatter helps us know who we are, beneath skin and surface. In labs we trap antihydrogen, a mirror atom, the simplest possible ghost of matter, one antiproton, one positron, floating in electromagnetic cages, touching nothing, seen only in slivers of time. We ask, do they fall the same way? Do they feel gravity as we do? Is the mirror not just in charge, but in shape, in curve, in soul? The answers still float, just out of reach. But even the asking feels holy. Even the wondering stretches your thoughts into stars. You are lying here warm, breathing, quiet, and yet your mind stretches across space, across possibility. Antimatter is not fiction. It is the unanswered half of your story. It whispers, you are not all there is. There may be a world just out of reach, built from the missing mirror. An antimatter galaxy, an anti-you, thinking these same thoughts, in a reversed tongue of physics. And if you met, would you vanish, or would you recognize something familiar? A shared longing, a shared spark. You sigh, and the thought lingers. The universe is not one, it is not two, it is reflection, and reflections echo. A breath and the space between. There are more questions ahead, not answers, not yet, but questions that stir the stillness gently, questions that open like petals in the dark. For now you rest in the knowledge that symmetry exists, even when it hides, even when it breaks. You begin with a breath, and in the quiet after that breath, you wonder what happens when the mirror breaks completely. What happens when antimatter meets time? You raise your hands slowly into the quiet night air, the tips of your fingers almost meeting. They hover, a whisper apart. And in this small moment, you are invited to imagine something extraordinary that when they touch, they vanish. Not into dust or wind, but into light soft and perfect, as if the universe had been holding its breath, waiting for the meeting, and now sighs out pure energy. This is the strange and silent dance of matter and antimatter. It begins, as many cosmic things do, with symmetry. Every particle, the tiny building blocks of you, your pillow, the stars outside your window has a twin. But this twin is not identical. It is the mirror reflection, equal in mass, opposite in charge. If the particle is an electron, its twin is a positron. If the particle is a proton, its mirror is an antiproton. Each pair is like a matched rhythm in the music of physics. Matter and antimatter, born as one. Long ago, in the earliest flickers after the Big Bang, matter and antimatter emerged in almost perfect balance. Imagine them like tiny dancers spinning out of fire, looking for one another. But unlike dancers who embrace, these pairs cancel. When they meet, they vanish, not in violence, but in transformation. They do not leave behind ashes, they leave behind light. This process is called annihilation, but the word misleads. It sounds harsh, aggressive, but what actually happens is soft and seamless. The particles simply stop being themselves and become something new: photons, packets of energy, flying away at the speed of light. It is the quietest kind of goodbye. And here is the strange thing: if the universe had kept its balance, if matter and antimatter had remained equal, then everything you know would have disappeared in that ancient dance. No planets, no oceans, no trees, no you, just light, endlessly flying. But something tipped the scale, a tiny imperfection, a faint imbalance in the early universe. For every billion particles of antimatter, there were 1,000,000,001 particles of matter. That one survived. That one, that quiet left over, became everything. Every mountain, every moonbeam, every book, every whisper, every breath. You are made of survivors, and yet the antimatter never truly disappeared. It lingers, rare and elusive, like stardust scattered at the edges of thought. Scientists create it now, in careful labs, coaxing it into existence for the briefest moments. In hospitals, positrons help scan your bones and search for illness. In space, high-energy collisions sometimes give birth to tiny bursts of it. It is not gone, only shy. But when matter and antimatter do meet, even now, the old rule holds. They vanish, and light is born. A flash, pure and mathematical, with no residue, no echo of the particles that were, just energy, liberated from identity. This process is beautiful in its simplicity. There are no sparks, no chaos, just the soft closing of a loop, a balancing of the cosmic ledger. It is the universe remembering to stay even. Imagine, now holding in your palms, a single atom of hydrogen, one proton, one electron, and beside it, its antimatter twin, an antiproton, a positron, perfectly matched. You move them closer, you feel the tremble in the air. As they touch, there is no sound, no explosion, just a bloom of light energy, enough to travel across the stars. The atom is gone, but its essence remains, rewritten as radiance. This is not destruction, it is translation, and the universe, it seems, is a master of translation. From particles to light, from motion to warmth, from balance to becoming. Matter and antimatter are not enemies, they are lovers who cannot stay. They are a poem with no ending, only transformation. And in this, there is a soft lesson that even opposites may meet and disappear and still leave beauty behind. As you lie here, in the hush of your room, you might wonder, why does the universe allow such delicate vanishing? Why create twins that undo each other with a kiss? Perhaps because creation and erasure are not enemies either. Perhaps on some deeper level, the universe is learning to balance, to unmake, in order to make, to transform, instead of destroy. This balancing act echoes everywhere, in the flicker of stars that shine by fusing matter into light, in the ripples of quantum fields that allow a particle to be and not be, in the thoughts that rise and fall inside your mind, a dance of electric patterns, matter briefly arranging itself into meaning before dissolving again. Even the breath you take in and then out is a rhythm of appearance and disappearance. You are part of this cosmic meditation. Now, stretch your mind a little further. Imagine an entire star made of antimatter, an anti-sun burning in a distant galaxy. If it ever collided with a regular star, both would vanish in an immense flash of gamma rays, a grand annihilation, echoing the quiet ones in the lab or the silent meeting of fingertips. Scientists have searched for such stars, and so far, they find none. Perhaps the universe kept most of the antimatter hidden, or perhaps it never made much to begin with. Another mystery, left gently unsolved, and so you return to your hand, your fingers still floating, still not quite touching. You see now how much power hides in the spaces between things, how much potential, how much balance. You are, in every moment, the product of what was spared and what softly vanished. Energy, it turns out, is not always made by motion. Sometimes it comes from meeting, from becoming, from letting go. And as you rest here, breathing slowly, you begin to sense that you too are always transforming. Every cell, every thought. Quiet, invisible changes, tiny annihilations, followed by light. You are, in your own way, part of this cosmic equation, a story of balance, a survivor of symmetry. And somewhere, not far away, the next question begins to glow faintly. You step quietly into the room. The air is still, almost reverent. Lights hum softly above you, their glow falling like breath on steel and glass. Before you, a strange chamber rests, a rectangular box, transparent and alive with an eerie kind of silence. It feels like you're about to watch something ancient wake up. This is a cloud chamber, a window into the invisible, a device not of brute force, but of grace. Its workings are humble, a sealed container, alcohol vapor, a chilled floor that cools the air until it's just on the edge of condensation. What matters is not the machine, but the mystery it reveals. For what dances inside is not mist alone, but memory, motion, and the soft arrival of things too strange to name. You lean closer. There in the thickened air a line curls. A silver spiral, delicate, ethereal, appears from nothing and spins itself into the fabric of the mist. It is a track, a trail left by something small, fast, and filled with meaning. And not just anything. This is a positron, the antimatter twin of the electron. Your heart slows. You don't just see this particle. You feel it, not as a thing but as a moment. Somewhere high above, a cosmic ray, a traveler from the stars, collided with an atom in the upper atmosphere. Out of that fiery collision, matter and antimatter were born in pairs, each partner spiraling away in opposite paths. One of those newborns made its way down, down, down until it reached this quiet room and brushed into the vapor here. What you see now is the path it traced in doing so, a brief glowing whisper, and this is antimatter. Not fire, not fury, not science fiction, just a faint curl in vapor, a ghost of something real. The positron itself is a marvel. It is the electron's mirror, its equal and opposite. Same mass, same spin, but its charge is reversed positive, where the electron is negative. They are like dancers spinning in opposite directions across the same floor. And when they meet, they vanish, releasing their energy in a flash of light, an act of mutual undoing that speaks in photons and fire. But here in this chamber, there is no collision, just the lone positron, spiraling gently. Its path bends slightly, not random, but guided. Invisible magnetic fields steer it, letting you tell its identity by its curve. That bend is a signature, a name written in motion. You think of all the places antimatter has been, not just this room, not just this lab, but the early universe, when matter and antimatter were born in equal breath, for every electron, a positron, for every proton, an antiproton. It was symmetry, perfect and wild, and yet, look around. The walls are not made of antimatter. You are not made of antimatter. Somewhere in those early seconds, a small imbalance tipped the scale just enough to let matter survive. The rest, gone elated, turned to light. Still, not all of it vanished. Tiny bits remain. In the upper reaches of space, antimatter still dances. In lightning bolts and cosmic storms, it is born anew. And here in this chamber, in the hush of laboratory breath, it curls before your eyes like a signature in steam. It is easy to forget, sometimes, that science is not about control but attention. You are not making this happen. You are witnessing it. You are quiet enough, patient enough, to see the world show you something rare. The positron's path is not loud, it doesn't shout, but it sings, if you listen with the right kind of ears. This is the power of the cloud chamber. A simple tool, a box of vapor. Yet in its stillness, it becomes a poet. It does not demand, it reveals. You wonder about the people who saw this first. In the 1930s, physicist Carl Anderson was studying cosmic rays, trying to understand these strange visitors from space. He wasn't looking for antimatter. But in his chamber, he saw the unexpected, a particle that bent the wrong way, like an electron, but not. That wrong curl became the evidence. The positron had been found, a discovery born not from force, but from curiosity. From the decision to watch the mist, you smile. In a world so loud, so filled with urgency, the birth of a new idea can still come in a curl of vapor. It reminds you that knowledge need not be aggressive, that to learn sometimes is to become still, to soften your gaze, to see. And yet what you're seeing is not simple. The positron is a particle of wonder, but it is also a key to technologies, to questions, to the very heart of the universe. Already in medical imaging, antimatter saves lives. POT scans positron emission tomography. Use antimatter to peer inside the body. In high-energy physics, antimatter is created and captured, its properties measured with precision. In theory, even propulsion antimatter engines lies on the far horizon. But here in this moment, none of that matters. Not yet. You are not racing toward use. You are just looking, and what you see is this, a tiny curl fading slowly in the mist, like breath, like memory, like a question waiting to unfold. And as the vapor stills, and the chamber empties again, your thoughts move forward, not in haste, but in quiet momentum. For if antimatter can appear like this, so gently, then what of its twin? The shadow that walks beside every particle. What more lies beyond the visible, waiting to be seen, not through force but through stillness? You linger in the quiet, the image of the spiral held soft behind your eyes. Close your eyes. Float backward, far, far beyond memory, beyond the earth, beyond stars, beyond atoms themselves. Drift toward the very beginning, when time had just begun its quiet ticking and space had barely unfurled its fabric. You arrive at a moment of shimmering possibility, the birth of the universe. It is not an explosion, but a blooming sudden, hot and filled with light. A flash so vast that it holds all futures inside it. From this radiant burst spills everything, energy, motion, potential, and tucked within this searing newness is something you cannot see, yet everything will depend upon it, the tiniest imbalance. In this infant universe, particles swirl into being, matter and antimatter, mirror images of each other. For every electron, an anti-electron. For every proton, an anti-proton. Twins in every way but charge. They emerge from the same equations, born together in equal numbers, and yet, not quite equal. You float among them, tiny specks, dancing and disappearing, colliding and cancelling out. When a matter particle meets its antimatter twin, they vanish in a blink of energy. This should be the end. If there were perfect symmetry, all would dissolve into light. No stars, no planets, no you, but something is different. For every billion pairs of matter and antimatter, there is one extra particle of matter left alone. Just one. A whisper of asymmetry in a universe built on balance. No one knows why. Maybe a twist in the laws of physics, a ripple in the quantum sea. Maybe the universe made a choice, quiet and irreversible. You move through this moment, where imbalance becomes destiny. Billions of collisions erase matter and antimatter alike, unleashing floods of photons. The young cosmos becomes a storm of light, washing clean the traces of what was. And yet, scattered like seeds on a wind-blown field, those extra matter particles remain survivors of a great erasure. That tiny remainder becomes everything. You touch one of them, it is warm with possibility. It will someday help form a hydrogen atom, drift in a nebula, fall into the heart of a newborn star. Without this surplus, the universe would be silent, glowing, yes, but empty of structure, no galaxies to swirl, no earth to turn, no minds to wonder. And what if it had been different? What if antimatter had won the coin toss of existence? A universe dominated by antimatter would look no different to the eye. Its anti-hydrogen stars would still shine. Anti-planets would orbit anti-suns. Life, if it could form, would build itself from anti-DNA, think anti-thoughts in anti-brains. But you made of matter would not be there to see it. You feel the mystery tugging at you. Why did matter win? The equations don't say. The laws we know seem to favor balance, yet the universe is not balanced. Somewhere, the symmetry broke subtly, irrevocably. Scientists call it CP violation, a small irregularity in how particles decay. It is like discovering a tiny quirk in a dancer's mirrored reflection, just enough to break the illusion. But even this known imperfection does not fully explain the vast difference between what is and what could have been. And so you float in a universe shaped by absence. You visit the places where antimatter lingers fleeting, rare. In high-energy collisions on Earth, it appears for a moment before disappearing again. In distant galaxies perhaps, it clings to the edges of what we know, forming anti-stars that silently mimic our own. But in this part of the cosmos, matter reigns. This dominance is fragile. When matter and antimatter meet, even now, they annihilate. A single gram of antimatter, if released in contact with matter, could power cities or destroy them. It is the most energetic conversion imaginable, yet it remains elusive, difficult to contain. You drift past the edge of theory, into speculation. What if we could harness it? Store antimatter safely, use it to fuel starships, or probe the boundaries of physics. The dream remains distant, caught between technical difficulty and existential risk. We must build traps of magnetic fields, hold particles suspended like fireflies in glass. But even fireflies are easier to keep. And yet, the pursuit continues not only for power, but for understanding. To study antimatter is to ask a deeper question: why are we here at all? If things had been fair, balanced, equal, we would not exist. The universe would glow in perfect symmetry, unmarked by planets or poems or breath. You begin to see that everything you know rests on a single cosmic asymmetry, a skewed roll of the dice at the dawn of time. And so, in this chapter of stillness and reflection, you realize how thin the thread is. 1 in a billion. That's all it took. One surplus proton, one unmatched quark, one persistent flicker of imbalance, and the universe unfolded differently. Time cooled, atoms formed, stars lit, life began. Not because everything was perfect, but because it wasn't. You carry this thought gently like a flame. Fragile, essential, a universe imperfect enough to exist. And as you float back from the early fire into the cool silence of now, the thought echoes softly inside you. What other asymmetries are hidden in the structure of reality? You close your eyes, and the world becomes quiet. The weight of the day lifts gently, like fog receding over a still morning lake. Now, in this slow breath of night, you drift not into darkness but into the very fabric of what lies beneath it. You are weightless, floating in a sea you cannot see, a sea made not of water, but of particles, tiny pulses of being, flickering in and out of existence. You feel them all around you, protons, like soft stones with mass and charge, electrons nimble and dancing in widening spirals, and beside them a silent mirror, their twins, their opposites, their shadows, the antiparticles. They do not shout, they hum, they do not fight, they wait, suspended in the trembling breath of the void. This is not emptiness. The vacuum, that word we often mistake for nothing, is full. It is alive with potential, with quiet creation and quiet disappearance. Particles emerge like glimmers, like fireflies pulsing in a warm field after sunset. They do not ask permission to exist. They simply do, and then they undo. You imagine a smooth, dark surface. Now ripple it, just slightly, and in that ripple a pair is born, matter and antimatter, born from stillness like a sigh made visible. One dances to the left, one to the right. They are the same in mass but opposite in charge, like perfectly matched puzzle pieces, waiting to find each other again. This dance is fleeting. Before long they meet and cancel, returning to the sea in a burst of energy. But in that moment of being, they were real as breath, as real as thought. You begin to feel the texture of this quantum ocean. It is not chaotic, nor calm. It is something else, a place where certainty is traded for possibility, where stillness means motion, and nothing means something. The rules here are soft, probabilistic. They do not break, they bend, like reeds in the wind. And yet they are the rules that make up everything you are. Every atom in your body, every neuron in your mind, every cell that dreams within you, all shaped by this quiet ballet beneath. This sea of flickers once roared with energy at the beginning of time, and even now it whispers beneath your skin. It is here that protons formed, stable and proud, from a churning foam of particles. It is here that electrons first found their spiraling paths. You float deeper still. Your body dissolves not into nothing, but into patterns. The pattern of a hydrogen atom, one proton, one electron, a bond of soft attraction. The pattern of carbon, 6 little pulses building the spine of life. The patterns ripple outward, becoming water, breath, trees, stars, all of it, everything built from this restless sea. Not a storm, but a tide that moves not in time, but in potential, where every flicker could be something, and then quietly, just as gently, return to being nothing. And yet not everything vanishes, not every pair annihilates. Sometimes in the smallest imbalances one particle remains, matter wins, just barely. A small cosmic whisper of survival. You, your hands, your thoughts, the planet beneath you, all of it exists because of this small quiet unevenness in the earliest universe. You imagine a moment just after the Big Bang. The sea was not calm, then it boiled. Particles and antiparticles burst into being, met and vanished in flashes. But something, no one knows quite why, tilted the scale, just enough. And in that tilt, the world as you know it began to coalesce. You rest in the hush of that aftermath. You feel the tug of symmetry and its refusal to be perfect. You feel the longing of antimatter, waiting to return. Above you, stars drift into view, each one born from matter that escaped disappearance, each one a quiet defiance of symmetry, each one a lighthouse of leftover particles from a moment long gone. You are made of this survival, not because it was planned, but because it happened. And now the universe holds that memory, softly glowing, still beneath it all. The sea continues. Particles still flicker. Vacuum fluctuations still hum. The universe even now makes room for the possible. You feel a strange comfort in this, that you are held not by certainty, but by chance, not by permanence, but by motion. You turn slowly, as if within a dream, and see a glimmer, not light, not matter, but something softer. A place where the rules of reality feel thinner, stranger, more poetic. A question begins to form, barely audible, like a breath through reeds. If matter and antimatter are so alike, and yet so opposite, then what happens when they meet? What does it mean to disappear? You close your eyes and drift upward past clouds and currents, past thunder and orbit. Above Earth, in a silence so deep it has no sound, satellites sweep through the dark. They are our lanterns in the void, peering for whispers, and one such whisper is antimatter. You are floating with them now, suspended among stars, in the emptiness between worlds. Cosmic rays strike particles at incredible speeds. From these tiny collisions, strange twins are born, matter and antimatter, balancing each other like mirrored sparks. But the universe is not a kind place for symmetry. The antimatter vanishes as quickly as it appears, annihilated when it brushes against ordinary matter. Yet sometimes, just sometimes, we catch a trace. A positron, the antimatter sibling of an electron, arcs through a detector's field, or an antiproton leaves a fleeting ghost print, recorded by the alpha magnetic spectrometer on the International Space Station. It's a sigh in the silence, a ripple in the dark ocean of space. You picture it now, a lab back on Earth, quiet and cold. There, scientists don't just wait for antimatter to drift in from space, they make it. In enormous rings like CERN's Large Hadron Collider, protons are accelerated to near light speed and smashed together. From this violence, brief flashes of antimatter emerge, rare and delicate, an antiproton here, an anti-electron there. But how do you hold what disappears when touched? You cannot place antimatter in a jar. You cannot let it rest on glass or metal, for it will vanish, not just vanish, but explode in a burst of energy. So the scientists build traps of emptiness. You feel yourself entering one now, a penning trap. It's a chamber surrounded by magnets, by electric fields, by silence. In its heart floats nothing, a vacuum, colder than space, stiller than sleep. There, the tiny anti-atoms are held in place, not by walls, but by invisible forces that push from every direction, like a spiderweb made of magnetic light. And there they wait, blinking in and out of time. You imagine holding an anti-hydrogen atom in your hands, a single anti-electron orbiting a single antiproton, so small, so perfect, so fragile. You do not touch it, you cannot. Instead, you simply watch it hover in a trap that hums like a lullaby. Scientists gaze too, not with their eyes, but with sensors and cameras and hope. When the antimatter annihilates, it sends out a burst of gamma light, and even from that disappearance, knowledge is born. By watching how long it lasted, how it moved, how it faded, they learn. The goals are many. Some dream of understanding why our universe prefers matter over antimatter. Some hope to harness antimatter's energy for propulsion, for medicine, for mysteries yet unknown. You picture a ship, someday, powered by the dance of annihilation, a star drive burning moonlight itself. But the dream is tender, and the process slow, because everything we know is made of matter, and antimatter cannot be near. You feel that tension now, the care, the stillness required. Every lab experiment is a quiet act of balance. The traps must remain stable, the vacuum must hold, the antimatter must never escape. Yet always it does. No trap is perfect, no silence complete. And so, after seconds or hours, the antimatter meets its match and dissolves into light. It's like trying to cup your hands around a snowflake in a sauna, or catching moonlight in a bottle made of fire. And still the scientists continue. They build better traps, they lengthen the seconds, they sharpen their gaze. You see the future stretched out like a ribbon of stars. Each experiment a tiny step on a long winding path. Someday, they say, we may store antimatter for hours, days. We may study its gravity, compare it to matter, ask it to reveal what the Big Bang buried. Until then, they catch it and lose it, catch it and lose it. Over and over, a ritual of patience. You feel the rhythm in it, like tides rolling in and out under a moon made of questions. Somewhere, a single anti-atom blinks out. Its story ends in light, and that light becomes data, and that data becomes a whisper of understanding. You drift back from the lab, back into the sky, where satellites still listen for ghosts in the dark. The chapter of capture ends here with a vanishing, but the trail continues, because the question now is not only how to hold antimatter, but why the universe chose to let it go. You begin tonight, not with footsteps, but with stillness, a soft descent into the void between substance and silence. Somewhere, far beyond the crust of Earth, tucked inside laboratories and dreams, a strange kind of nothing pulses with unimaginable power. It is called antimatter, and though it has never lit a city or propelled a vessel across space, it holds the promise of both. What if everything had a mirror, not one you see, but one you feel, not just a reflection, but a reversal? For every particle that makes you, that makes the stars, that stirs the oceans, there exists or once existed its opposite, an antiparticle, where the electron carries a tiny negative spark. Its twin, the positron, hums with a positive charge. The same shape, the same mass, but everything flipped like the left hand of reality. This is not fiction, it is truth woven into the fabric of physics, a symmetry so delicate, so balanced, that when matter and antimatter meet, they vanish in a burst of pure energy. Not smoke, not ash, only light, only force, total transformation. You close your eyes and picture it, two invisible dancers meeting in perfect step, touching for the briefest heartbeat, and then gone. Their embrace becomes a pulse, a wave, a flash. This is annihilation, but it is not destruction, it is release. In this chapter of quiet thinking, you explore that dance. You imagine drifting down into the heart of a machine that holds trapped positrons in magnetic nets. They shimmer like ghost sparks, held still by fields you cannot see. One wrong move, one stray atom of matter, and the net flickers with fire. Energy, instantly but dangerous, uncontrollable, and wild. Antimatter is rare, so rare in fact, that in our whole observable universe, almost everything is made of matter. The mystery lies there, deep and unresolved. Why did the universe choose one over the other? In the earliest moments of creation, equal amounts of matter and antimatter should have formed. They should have met, kissed and vanished, leaving only darkness. Yet here you are breathing, thinking, listening. Something tipped the balance. Something subtle, some whisper in the laws of physics, leaned gently toward matter, letting it remain after its twin disappeared. But perhaps somewhere beyond what telescopes can reach, clouds of antimatter galaxies still drift in secret, beautiful, silent mirrors of our own. Now imagine, what if we could harness this vanishing act? Just 1 gram of antimatter, less than the weight of a paperclip, could hold the energy of a small nuclear bomb. Controlled, it could power spacecraft to the outer planets in weeks, not years. It could heat cities without flame. It could carry human minds beyond the moon, past Mars, into the black velvet quiet of interstellar space. But to use it, we must learn to cradle lightning in our hands. At CERN, beneath the Earth, in winding tunnels of magnets and metal, scientists build tiny traps for antimatter. They make it atom by atom in bursts of high-energy collisions. They gather antiprotons, positrons, and assemble them into antihydrogen, storing them with care in vacuum chambers colder than space. Even the container walls cannot touch them. Matter must never meet antimatter. Not until we are ready. You picture a future room, dark and humming. On a sleek pedestal, a sphere of frozen antihydrogen glows faintly violet, suspended in magnetic stasis. Around it, silence, reverence, awe. Not because it is forbidden, but because it is powerful. A candle of possibility, a matchstick to the stars. Your thoughts drift further. Could this become fuel? Could ships someday sip antimatter, turning disappearance into forward motion? In theory, yes. An antimatter rocket would unleash energy with astonishing efficiency, nearly 100% of mass converted to thrust. No chemical burn, no solar sails, only light, only the raw translation of substance into speed. But for now the cost is immense. To make even a microgram of antimatter costs billions. It takes more energy to produce than it would ever release, and so, it remains a whisper. A distant hope in the mind of physics. Still, hope is its own kind of propulsion. You float among metaphors, two lovers who destroy one another in passion, becoming something greater in the end. A phoenix that burns not because it must die, but because it must shine. You think of annihilation not as loss, but as transformation, the ultimate alchemy, the heart of all change. In the night, the idea flickers, can something be born from perfect disappearance? Perhaps this is what antimatter teaches you, that even the most violent meeting can be beautiful, that opposites are not enemies, but parts of a single rhythm, that energy at its purest needs no flame. It only needs meeting and letting go. You take a breath, you are lying still, but inside your mind 1,000 ships of thought are moving, slow, calm and curious. You imagine a generation not yet born, who may walk through starlight powered by these vanishings, who may look back at Earth and say, "We did this, because we dared to understand." Softly now, the thoughts return to silence. The antimatter rests once more in its magnetic cradle, the collisions end. The laboratory dims, but in your mind, the glow remains, the dream of a power not born in explosion, but in precision. In the gentle dark, you listen to this silence, filled not with nothing, but with potential. And as the idea dissolves into quiet, you ask what else lies waiting, just beyond the known. You begin adrift slowly, silently in the dark ocean of space. All around you is the hush of the cosmos. Stars like scattered whispers in a sky without ground. There is no up, no down, only drifting. Your breath feels slow, like time itself has softened, and the edges of your mind open to wonder. You are not falling, you are floating. And there, in the velvet stillness, comes a question: where has antimatter gone? Once, in the early seconds of everything, matter and antimatter were born as equals, twins formed in fire, dancing in perfect symmetry. Every particle had its partner, its mirrored self, yet as you gently drift through space now, it's clear, matter remains. You are made of it. Stars, planets, air, all matter and antimatter. It seems to have vanished like a dream at morning's edge, but perhaps not entirely. Your journey begins in the arms of a spiral galaxy. You hover above it like a bird over a distant forest. Its arms sweep outward, glowing with starlight and ancient dust, and somewhere within those glowing spirals, among the birthplaces of stars, lies possibility, tiny pockets, hidden amid the swirl. Could there be islands of antimatter, quietly surviving? The symmetry of the early universe might not have been erased, but merely folded into corners we have yet to fully see. The thought leads you deeper. You float toward the galactic center, where gravity becomes thick and time feels like it stretches. At the heart of many galaxies, black holes spin in silence, not like drains, but like clocks wound tightly with secrets. And here in the bending of space, there may lie the last gentle harbors of antimatter. Antimatter is not evil, it is not destructive by nature. Its annihilation with matter is not violent, but simply complete, a perfect closing of a loop, where all that remains is pure energy. You imagine them not as enemies, but as dancers whose steps cancel each other out, not in battle but in a final bow. As you drift nearer the event horizon of a black hole, not too close, just enough to feel its pull, you wonder, do matter and antimatter spiral in together, side by side, or do these regions separate them, hiding antimatter from the glare of our instruments? You leave the center behind and move outward again to quieter parts of space. Here in the interstellar winds between stars, solar particles flow, mostly protons, sometimes electrons, bathing the space in a breeze we can't feel. You imagine this cosmic wind brushing past your cheeks, and here, drifting in these winds, scientists have looked for signs: a lone antiproton, a wandering positron like rare birds spotted against the sky. They exist, these particles, rare, fleeting, like sparks in water. But they are real. You float alongside one, now a positron, gentle and bright. It spins like any other particle, unaware of its difference. It is not hostile. It is simply the mirror of an electron, born from cosmic rays striking atoms at speed, or from more ancient beginnings we still don't fully trace. You follow it for a while, watching as it flits into space, perhaps to meet an electron and vanish into light. And in that light, that burst of gamma energy, there is no scream, no pain, just a return to energy, the foundation of all. You remember now, matter and antimatter may not be gone. They may simply pass through this rhythm, creating and vanishing in a slow cosmic breath. Your journey moves again. You float near a neutron star, dense, ancient, spinning fast like a lighthouse in the void. In its intense magnetic fields, particles are twisted and reborn. Here too, positrons are made, ejected into space in narrow beams. You watch one pulse, slow, steady, like a heart. In each flash, particles and antiparticles swirl into existence, then fade again. It's a kind of peace, not silence, but balance. Creation followed by erasure, not as destruction but as return. You remember the great laboratories back on Earth. Deep underground, scientists mimic the early universe in rings of light. In the Large Hadron Collider, protons spin faster and faster until they collide, and for a moment the universe begins again. Antimatter appears, like ghosts in a mirror, for just long enough to study, before they vanish again into energy. You imagine them, scientists in white, eyes wide, watching their screens not for explosions but for hints, for patterns, for the quiet echo of symmetry. Back in space, you pass a cloud of hydrogen drifting between stars. It is calm, ancient, made of matter. But somewhere in the universe, there could be clouds made of anti-hydrogen, neutral, invisible, untouched by time. We have not yet found them. But we search, and you float onward through that search. In your dreaming drift, you come to understand antimatter may not be gone. It may be folded into fabric we haven't yet unfolded, like dark ink on the far side of parchment, still there, still echoing. Maybe the question is not where is antimatter, but rather why does matter remain? You pause at that thought. Could there have been a tiny imbalance in the beginning, one extra matter particle for every billion matter-antimatter pairs? Just enough that when the rest vanished in bright bursts of energy, that 1 in a billion remained, enough to make stars, planets. You float in that thought, wrapped in the quiet idea that your very being is the result of imbalance, a fortunate flaw, a sliver of asymmetry in an otherwise perfect mirror. Yet still the mirror must exist somewhere, the symmetry must echo, softly, somewhere in the darkness. And as you move away from the starfields, you realize that maybe antimatter hasn't vanished, it's just resting in places where matter is not. Waiting in the quiet folds of the cosmos, in the spaces we haven't yet looked, in the thoughts we haven't yet thought. In the next chapter you will wander into this mystery further through the elegant laws of symmetry, the balance of opposites, and the hidden places where physics hums in harmony. But for now you float between particles and poems, between silence and thought, where matter and antimatter may still live, side by side, not in conflict, but in pause. You lie still, under a pale light. A soft voice asks you to breathe, and you do slowly, evenly, as a machine begins to hum beside you. You're not on a spaceship. You're not in a lab on the edge of a galaxy. You're in a hospital room. And yet, in this room, in this moment, antimatter is quietly, invisibly dancing inside you. Positrons, the mirror twins of electrons, are flowing through your body. They are not science fiction here. They are not exotic particles from distant stars. No, here, they are tools of healing, of vision, of knowing. These tiny glimmers of antimatter, born in machines and set free with precision, travel into you not as a threat, but as a guide, luminous messengers whispering secrets about your living tissues. This is a PET scan, Positron emission tomography. It begins with a molecule sugar, often tagged with a positron-emitting isotope. This molecule, eager for energy, is injected into your bloodstream, and because your body craves sugar in places that are active places growing, fighting, working, the sugar rushes there, carrying its glowing passenger. The positron doesn't last long. It meets its partner, an electron, and together they vanish, but not entirely. In that blink of annihilation, that gentle mutual end, a flash of light is born. Two photons, moving in perfect opposition, spill out from the point of union. The machine around you is watching, patiently, for these twin beams of light. It listens for them with rings of detectors, mapping each moment of farewell into an image. Where there is light, there is activity. Where there is silence, there is calm. And so, image by image, your body reveals itself. The beating heart, the glowing brain, the quiet bones, the busy marrow, all of it seen through the delicate meeting of matter and antimatter, not in a distant laboratory, but in the gentle corridors of medicine. You may wonder how it came to this, how something born in the study of cosmic rays and particle collisions now rests so quietly in your chest, a part of your care. The story goes back to curiosity, as it so often does. In the 1930s, Carl Anderson first saw the positron dancing in a cloud chamber, leaving its curling signature through vapor trails. At the time, it was astonishing. A particle the same as an electron, but positive, as if the universe had written the same word backwards and watched it walk. No one imagined then that this elusive twin would someday help diagnose disease, that antimatter, born in violence and decay, would become part of healing. But as understanding deepened, so did possibility. Physicists built accelerators, engineers refined detectors, doctors began to dream. They wondered, if antimatter reveals so much in labs, could it reveal something within us? And the answer, softly, became yes. Today, PET scans guide the treatment of cancers, trace the early patterns of Alzheimer's, illuminate the hidden flickers of epilepsy, and more. They show not just structure, but function, not just where things are, but what they're doing. They are like poems of light inside your body, written by annihilation, read by science. You lie still, but inside you, the universe whispers, and there's something humbling in that. That the same particles we study to understand creation, we also use to understand ourselves. That the same energies once feared as destructive antimatter, annihilation, become gentle and purposeful in the right hands. It blurs the line between cosmic and personal. You're not simply a person on a planet. You are made of star stuff, yes, but also studied by star tools. The machines that see your cells glowing with positron trails were once dreamed of by physicists watching galaxies. The particle beams used to discover quarks and muons are cousins to those used to manufacture medical isotopes. You are, in this moment, part of the arc of physics, a point along the path from curiosity to compassion. The particles in your body, protons, neutrons, electrons, are not alone now. For a brief moment, they are joined by their shadows, their opposites, flickering into being to illuminate what lives within. And perhaps that's the deeper beauty, that in the meeting of opposites, in matter and antimatter, in science and medicine, something useful emerges. A bridge is formed, knowledge becomes care, physics becomes tenderness. You breathe again. The machine quiets. The positrons have done their work. Soon doctors will study the maps they made. They will look for patterns, for signals, for signs. But you, lying here, already sense the strange poetry of it all. That your body, your very cells, were just read by particles from another world. That healing came not from bandages or pills, but from the fading footprints of invisible twins. And yet, even this intimacy with antimatter is just one small moment in a much larger journey. Because positrons are only one kind of antimatter. Out there, beyond hospitals, scientists are still chasing the others: antiprotons, antineutrons, even entire antiatoms. The mystery isn't over, not by far. If anything, it deepens. What if entire regions of the universe hold antimatter galaxies? What if stars made of antiparticles glow somewhere we've never looked? And why? Why is there more matter than antimatter in the universe at all? You open your eyes, touched by light, but full of questions. This isn't the end of the story. It's only the moment your own body joined it. You lie still beneath the hush of imagined stars, where the mind loosens its grip, and thoughts begin to drift, not in chaos, but in a quiet spiral of meaning. You have wandered far tonight through clouds of positrons, magnetic mirrors, and the invisible dance of opposites. Now, you return not to an answer, but to the question that first brought you here. What is the shape of emptiness? What fills the void, if not silence? There, tucked into the folds of your thoughts, rests a truth that's both familiar and strange. For every particle, there could have been its twin, not identical but reversed, inverted, mirrored across a cosmic axis. Antimatter, the reflection we never see. Close your eyes. Picture a mirror. Now picture one. You cannot look into one that exists, not in glass or silver, but in the laws of physics. In this mirror, an electron becomes a positron, a proton turns to an antiproton. Everything flips, not just charge, but time's direction, even perhaps its purpose. You imagine two universes, one made of matter, like ours, and another made entirely of antimatter. Could they coexist? Would they look the same? Could a sunset still bloom over an antiparticle horizon? No one truly knows. But this you do. When matter and antimatter meet, they vanish in a burst of light, not in violence, but in unity. Annihilation, yes, but of the most exquisite kind. Energy freed, the potential returned. So why is there something instead of nothing? You breathe into that mystery, feeling its edges soften. Somewhere early in time, imbalance crept in, a slight excess of matter, just enough to form stars, dust, you, and antimatter. It vanished, or seemed to, but disappearance is not always erasure. In particle accelerators, deep underground, we call it forth again. Summon positrons, coax antiprotons into traps, freeze them in magnetic bottles like rare dreams, but they do not stay. They long to return to their counterparts, to finish the dance they were born to complete, and yet, in the smallest spaces, traces linger. You are not made of antimatter, but you are shaped by its absence. There's something deeply quiet about that thought. Consider this: your heartbeat, regular, rhythmic, is powered by cells bathed in ions. These ions are born in atoms, and atoms are what remain of early matter. You are built not just from what survived, but from what triumphed over annihilation, from what endured imbalance. You are, in a sense, the echo of a great asymmetry. But does that make the opposite less real? No. Antimatter was not the loser in a cosmic war, it was the partner in a primal duet. And though the stage has shifted, its melody continues in radiation, in rare collisions, in the minds that remember it. You are remembering it now, not with equations, but with wonder. And wonder is the most faithful container of paradox. Drift further now, back to the stillness between particles, the vacuum that is never truly empty. Even there, quantum fields simmer, pairs of particles and antiparticles blink into being, borrowing time from uncertainty itself. They appear, dance, and disappear too quickly to touch, but not too quickly to be real. This is not fiction. It is how the universe breathes. You take a slow breath and imagine yourself floating among those brief companions, ghost pairs, twin flames of potential, appearing from nothing and returning without sound. They teach you that absence can shimmer, that nothingness has texture, that what seems gone may only be folded like a sheet of paper, bent along its axis, hiding the ink on one side. Antimatter is not gone, it is folded into the structure of things, into equations, into theory, into hope. It is folded into how we dream about symmetry, about balance, about how the universe could have been, and perhaps in some corner still is. And so, as your thoughts slow, and your inner horizon dims to velvet, you sit with this final knowing. Not all journeys seek resolution. some are meant only to unfold, to remind you of the mirror you can never look into, and the self you never had to be. The idea of antimatter is not one of absence, but of belonging, a shadow that proves the light, a partner that teaches what it means to exist, even if only briefly, even if only in opposition. And isn't that true of many things? The questions we carry, they are not weights, but sails. They move us, steer us, not toward endings, but toward unfolding. You end where you began, with a breath and a reflection. The universe is quiet now, and so are you. Still, a flicker remains, a thought, not fully put to rest. If opposites are real, and balance is only partial, what else lies folded, waiting? Last lines, transition to next chapter. You let your breath settle, knowing not all things must be complete. Some truths shimmer only in contrast. And in the hush between questions, you begin to wonder, if antimatter is one half of the story, what happens when time itself bends the tale?